Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an article from the Associated Press that was published on February 21st. It's written by Andrew Selsky. And you got to love how, because of the environment that they created in regards to housing, they're literally going to screw over property owners. Because people who can't afford to buy property and can't afford to pay rent because of what the Democrats have done in these, in Oregon, they're going to literally enact statewide rent control. I mean, the title here, Oregon Housing Squeeze Sets Stage for Statewide Rent Control. I mean, that says it all. And it's literally because of a situation of their making. Because, like, say, Salem and Portland and all these cities, just like the other cities along the West Coast for the most part, they put these ridiculous building regulations on their communities that make it near impossible for people to come in and provide housing for people like these individuals in their file photo that don't like the fact that supply and demand has made it so that they have to pay more or get the fuck out. See, these communities, instead of allowing, the capitalism situation here of, well, there's a demand for people, housing for people, because of how you idiots have regulated the shit out of construction and housing and everything else here. It's caused us, we can charge more, people are willing to pay more. How about maybe you pull your heads out of your asses on the other side, allow us to build some housing, and maybe we'll lower our rents a little bit because we'll be able to, because we'll have to, because there'll be competition. There will be other places available. But see, they don't understand that. I mean, it's like San Francisco. It's no different. Faced with a housing shortage and skyrocketing rents, Oregon is poised to become the first state to impose mandatory rent controls, with a measure establishing tenant protections moving swiftly through the legislature. So basically, they're going to force homeowners, property owners, to do what they say to do with their property, as opposed to what they want to do with their own property. I mean, that's pretty bad. What they don't understand is by putting in these rent controls. You look at New York City. There are a lot of rundown, shitty places with rent control where they've had to buy, eventually they, with gentrification and stuff, a lot of them have been bought out. But you still have areas where you have these buildings where they've been rent controlled to the point of where the owners can't afford to maintain them. And then they go after the owner and say, you're a slumlord. And it's like, well, I'm literally not making enough money to cover the property. Never mind the maintenance. Well, that's on you. And they literally will blame the property owner for that. That's what's going to happen here, but on a much larger scale. And they're going to end up seeing the quality of their cities and towns with this go down because of this. Well, we are talking the West Coast. I mean, I'm sure there's, in Portland, I'm sure there's piles of shit like San Fran just out in the middle of the sidewalk and people shooting up and shit. So, yeah. Many residents have testified in favor of the legislation, describing anxiety and hardship as they face higher rents. Some have gone up as much as almost 100%, forcing people to move, stay with friends, or even live in their vehicles. Well, you know what? That's sad. I feel bad. But you know what? Don't blame the property owner. Don't force the property owner to do what the government wants because you're upset about that. How about you bitch at the government, your community's government, the city council, board of selectmen, whatever the case may be, and say, hey, stupid fucks, we need more housing. Pull your heads out of your asses and allow for them to zone more shit or allow people to build. Go to your building commissions, your building planning boards and say, look, we want this built. We need more housing. Instead of going, well, we want to keep this a quaint little city, and then get upset when your rent goes up because the demand for housing is up. That's on you for not speaking up and telling the people that are supposed to represent you, that you supposedly voted for, or whether you did or didn't, but are supposed to represent you, doing something that's screwing you. The property owners shouldn't be the ones getting screwed here. Just because they own a piece of property that they're nice enough to rent to you. They should not be compelled to rent it to you for a set price. This is ridiculous. That Oregon thinks that this is a good idea. Well, we're talking the left coast, the commie coast. Well, what do you expect? The Oregon housing shortage is getting worse because of a big influx of people moving to the state, lured by the state's job opportunities and its forests, mountains, coastlines, and relaxed lifestyle. Many move from California, where the cost of living is often more expensive. Now, this is complete horseshit. This is complete horseshit. This is an excuse because the reason why there's a housing shortage isn't because there isn't there's a shortage of available land to build on, or anything like that. It's not because of those things. It's because the state and local governments have regulated the shit out of housing, building it, zoning, everything. They've overregulated the living hell out of it to control things because they don't want these big cities. They don't, they want things to be quaint. They want things to have the feel that it does that attract people there. Understandable, but that's just going to raise the values of property and the costs of rent in a somewhat artificial manner, because this could be solved relatively easily. And the reason why I say artificial is because of that. All you have to do is allow for more building to take place, and this would not be an issue. But you see, you don't want to do that, and the AP doesn't want to bring that out and point that fact out. Of course they don't, because they're left-leaning, fucking, propagandist, bullshit-pushing morons, usually. Oh, well, like, they're trying to portray this as a good thing to back me up on this, that they're going to enact rent control. That should say a lot. Cities across the West Coast are struggling with soaring housing prices and a growing homeless problem. The small southern Oregon city of Medford recently authorized churches to offer car camping for the homeless in their parking lots. Well, that's because you've got, besides the fact of you people overregulating the shit out of property, you've got all these junkies and shit. Well, they end up being junkies, but they drive there going, oh, I'll go move to Oregon. And because you've priced out the average person there, again, going back to your building restrictions and your zoning restrictions and everything else, these people come there with not enough money to start off, especially for there, and they get fucked. They end up having to camp out in their car. Then you have the people who end up camping out in their cars because of your building bullshit, who got priced out of any place that they could rent. That's on you guys who did this with your regulations and building codes and zoning restrictions and everything else. A state legislative House committee on Wednesday backed the measure, sending it to the full chamber for a vote as soon as next week. The state Senate passed it last week. Governor Kate Brown told reporters she expected the full House to approve the measure. I look forward to signing the bill, said Brown, a Democrat. Well, of course she's looking forward to the bill being signed. Do you want to know why? Because it means more control for the Democrats. It means more control for the government. And where she's at the head of that state's government, yeah, she's going to want that. This is ridiculous. This is truly ridiculous. Instead of going, you know what, maybe we should allow for more shit to be built instead of like going environmentalism. Because you got to pick, okay? Keeping some more, not restricting how many, sections of trees being cut down that could easily, be replanted someplace else. The wood could be used, but taking down, some wooded area to build new houses or people that are homeless. More affordable housing and new housing and people living in their cars. To me, that's a no fucking brainer. At least it should be. To anyone, that has any inkling of common fucking sense, instead of trying to go, let's just fucking regulate. Let's just put rent control on property owners and tell them what they can and can't do with their property. The committee rejected an amendment that would have exempted cities with populations under 150,000 and another that would have delayed the measure from becoming law until January 1st, 2020, instead of immediately after Brown signs it. Yes, see, they want this in. This is about control. This is about the fact of they're pandering for votes. And they think by doing this, they're going to, gain more votes on the note of the left, the Democrats. Because those people that they have to use this for are going to be the ones that tend to be, the ones that go gimme, gimme, gimme. And because of that, vote Democrat. It's like in the video I did the other day. They're going after 16-year-olds, they're trying to lower the age for voting down to 16. They're looking for any which way that they can pander and gain more control in the state. We've waited too long as it is, and there are too many people living in tents. It's an emergency, said Rep. Tanya Sanchez, a Portland Democrat and member of the House Committee on Human Services and Housing that endorsed the legislation. Oh, okay, well, where you're on that particular committee, Sanchez, how about you put the idea forth of maybe opening up more of the state to development for housing? That would definitely alleviate your problem, and you wouldn't have to put this rent control in play. Oh, wait, but then you wouldn't gain power and control. Lawmakers said Oregon will be a pioneer in statewide rent control if the measure becomes law. No, they will be the shining example of why not to do it. New York has a statewide rent control law, but cities can choose whether to participate. Yeah, that's the thing. See, New York at least gives their cities the option to participate. Oregon wants to force even small communities to have rent control. Areas where people with money would tend to rent a more expensive place. Oh, well, we're going to force the rents lower, and that exclusivity's gone. They're going to turn Oregon with this shit into a shithole, because they're going to have really cheap rents forced on really expensive places. And when you have someone who's paying shit for something like that, it ain't paying squat in comparison, they're not going to respect it. And it's going to lead to a situation, like I said, where you're going to have people that can't afford to maintain their properties, because they're not going to change the values of these properties to reflect this lower income being generated from them with the rent control. They're going to still, Oregon's cities and towns and the state are still going to want their property taxes. They're not going to go, we don't care that we screwed your ability to earn money on this. We say the property's worth this much, even though we screwed it as an income source and therefore should have devalued the property. We don't care. Pay us. You don't want to pay us? Okay. We will throw you in jail and take your property. And this happened in New York City with properties. You'd have owners just abandoning them, going, well, I can't afford to maintain the property because I can't make any money off of it because of your fucking rent control. And they would just abandon them at some point. That's what's going to happen in Oregon. I mean, this is just going to cause shit. California restricts the abilities of cities to impose rent control. Last November, voters defeated a ballot initiative that would have overturned that law. Homelessness and affordability have no boundaries, said Rep. Mark Meek, a Democrat from a Portland suburb. We're going to be leading the nation now with this legislation. Yes, homelessness and affordability have their boundaries. It's literally the opposite of what you're claiming, because there is a boundary between being able to pay rent and have a roof over your head and being fucking homeless. There is a boundary there. And because of how you people run your state and not allowing new construction, you are where you are, and it's all your own fucking fault. Now you want to screw over property owners because you fucked up. It's vile. You are sleazebags, and you're taking the virtue signaling route with it. Oregon's measure prohibits landlords from terminating month-to-month leases without cause after 12 months of occupancy and limits rent hikes to once per year. Those increases are limited to 7% above the annual change in consumer price index. Now that's complete bullshit. A month-to-month lease, it's voluntary. You should have a right to terminate without cause. It's your property. Why the fuck shouldn't you have the right to say, you know what? You know, you were a great tenant, but it's time for you to move on. Because maybe they're going to sell it. Maybe they're going to turn it into condos, whatever the case may be. Landlords can terminate tenancies only with 90 days written notice and a payment of 1 month's rent, with exemptions in some cases. What? Holy fucking shit. They have to pay them a month's rent? Oh my God. Only on the commie coast. A landlord can refuse to renew a fixed-term lease if the tenant receives 3 lease violation warnings within 12 months and the landlord gives 90-day notice. So wait a minute. If a lease is about to lapse, they don't have the option to just say, fuck it, I don't want to renew it. They have to jump through all these fucking hoops? That's horseshit. The Oregon Rental Housing Association, which represents small-scale landlords, said the measure protects good tenants while not encouraging landlords to leave the business and invest their money elsewhere. I don't buy that. This is not what's going to happen, because they're going to extend the reach of this and the power of this, and they're going to fuck over people. Because the property values are going to go up above the 7% index. The demand is going to be even higher. And these people are like, so wait a minute. You're willing to pay me $3,000 a month. They're paying me $1,200. Well, sorry to Mr. $1,200, but you got to go. They're going to pay me $3,000. That's business. That's capitalism. All right. I understand it might hurt some people's fees when it comes to housing and shit, but that's how it works. And if these idiots had allowed, like I've been saying through this whole video, I don't know, construction to happen, new housing, they wouldn't be in the boat they're in. I believe most landlords will be able to adapt and operate within the parameters, said Jim Straub, the group's legislative director. No, bullshit. Just go look at New York City. They're a poster child for rent control. It led to a lot of the decay through the 70s and 80s. With houses going, apartment buildings just becoming rundown shitholes. That's what's going to happen in Oregon, but it's going to be a statewide problem. I believe most landlords will be able to adapt. Oh, that's just so cute. Sucking up to the lefties. Eric Lint, who lives in Bend, one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S., urged lawmakers to pass the protections because of spiraling rents. The medical lab where he works is chronically understaffed because potential hires say there's a lack of affordable housing. So instead of opening up the community to new construction and allowing for people to build affordable housing, apartment complexes and condo complexes and even single family homes and multiple family homes, like duplexes, and basically develop the area. Instead of allowing them to do that, you're going to still have people needing housing and the market not actually to be able to react to the fact that there are people willing to pay more money, and those people are going to be screwed. So basically, you're not solving the problem. But this idiot's going, yeah, Lint is like, yep, this is a good idea. He works in a medical lab. You would think this guy would have, at least some form of intelligence to be able to do the math and go, okay, if we do this, that doesn't mean that we have more housing for people. Okay, so we still have the same number of houses, and the money's going to be less than what they could charge. Okay, and be able to do the math and figure it out. Lynn said his hourly pay has risen 8% over 5 years. Meanwhile, his rent has increased 66%. He plans to move away in the fall, but did not say where in his testimony. Well, here's the thing. How about your community build shit? Solves the problem. Real simple. Anna Pena, a senior at the University of Oregon in Eugene, who works full-time, described living in a house smaller than 1,200 square feet with 5 roommates and spending over half her income on rent that then increased by 15%. Okay? Instead of bitching at the land, about the fact that the landlord's able to raise your rent because of the demand, how about you bitch at the lawmakers who won't allow new construction to be built? Okay, Anna? How about that? Oh, wait a minute. You're a diehard Democrat and you would think that this was a good idea with a name like Pena and being from Oregon. Ultimately, housing insecurity has been one of the biggest setbacks for my education and personal health, she said. What is it with this fucking insecurity fucking shit that they, this security or insecurity or this, they throw security in with another word or insecurity with another word, and it's a fucking social justice, cultural Marxist, identity politics buzzword now, buzz phrase all of a sudden. There is no such thing as housing insecurity. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that is not a fucking thing. There is no such thing as housing insecurity. There is the fact of supply and demand. And because the supply is limited, landlords can demand more money. Sorry to break it to you. Bitch at your fucking representatives in your town government and in the state government and demand that they allow for more new construction. Very simple. Senator Tim Knopp, a Republican from Bend, said before he voted against the measure last week that it does not address the housing supply issue. Ding, ding, ding. You notice how AP puts this down at the bottom? Because they don't think people are going to read this far down. Because, my feels good. They're going to make it so that people can have cheaper rent. See, but they don't want people to see this. So, because they know people aren't going to read this far down, most likely. At least the type of people that they're attracting from the left that would see the title and go, ooh, this is good. They would see all the feely shit, the feels about, this should be done. Another measure aiming to deal with that issue would require cities and counties to allow duplexes and some higher density housing in lands zoned for single family homes. Yes, see, they've specifically zoned it. So that's single family homes. They don't want to change the zoning. This is like these bedroom communities in New England that are, say, within commuting distance of, say, Boston. They purposely restrict what can be built so that it's single family homes that they can, it keeps. They only allow so many building lots per year. It keeps the property values higher. It keeps the pricing of houses higher. It limits what you have coming into your town on the note of caliber of resident, I guess you could say. And then they limit things like, we're not going to have, some of these places you're lucky if they have a fucking Dunkin' Donuts. And they want to remain a bedroom community. That's what these communities have basically done. They don't want to move forward. They want to remain the way they are. And that's what's causing this supply issue. House Speaker Tina Kotek, a Democrat, said 30,000 housing units must be built per year to meet the state's current housing deficit and to build for the future as more people move to Oregon. Yeah. housing units they're saying. Now, are they talking about apartment complexes and 1 unit per those, per like an apartment each? Or are they talking, to me, I'm assuming that would be 30,000 homes, period. That should say a lot. They're going to need that yearly, according to what she's saying. And their solution is to restrict what can be charged for rent. Fucking idiots. That's the Democrats at work for you. Oregon ranked second to Vermont as the top moving destination in 2018, according to a study by United Van Lines, the largest U.S. household good mover. Why? There's nothing to do in Vermont. Oregon, there's some shit to do. God, that's bad. About 60% of Oregon's new arrivals come for jobs or because they're looking for work, said John Lehner, a state economist. At least 1/3 of the new arrivals are from California, he said. Yeah, they're fleeing California because of all the shit, that higher taxes, everything else. Not realizing that they're moving to a place that's a carbon copy that's just a few years behind, like with the housing bullshit, like San Francisco. Only a few years behind here, just a couple. But they're still behind. They don't realize that, so they're going to move again. I mean, they'll end up probably moving to Texas and fucking that place up. But yeah, this is a problem that they could easily solve. All they have to do is just, give up a little bit of the tree hugging fucking hippie shit in regards to the environment and say, you know what? We got people living in their cars. Maybe we should cut down those trees over there and allow them to build a fucking apartment complex. Maybe we should allow that acreage over there to get, cleared out and allow them to put in some homes, some duplexes or whatever else. They don't want to do that. They would rather try to regulate rent and force rent control and think that's going to solve their problem, or even put a Band-Aid on their problem. And it's not even going to do that. Anyway, I've covered this well enough. I'm just going to leave things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.